Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the content patch for the 14th of January 2013. My name is TotalBiscuit with today's gaming news and comment. Coming up in the show, Sony executive hints at the PS4 announcement coming in May. CD Projekt Red secretly announces The Witcher 3 in a hidden frame inside the Cyberpunk 2077 CGI trailer. Gabe Newell on the differences between PC and TV gaming, or indeed the lack of them, and Warner Bros. Registers 15 Arkham universe domains. Sony executive Hiroshi Sakamoto has stated in an interview that the PlayStation 4 announcement is indeed coming. In a translation, he said, "That's still a big secret, but our friends at PlayStation are getting ready. For now, I can only say that we're focused on the gaming event E3 scheduled for June." However, he also added that an announcement can be by then or even before in May. He followed up by saying, "In that time, we expect to deliver great news. We must wait until May at least," he added. There have been some rumors circulating that there would be a PS4 announcement as early as February, but for the most part, these interview quotes seem to confirm that the PS4 announcement will be coming sometime around E3, and it's quite likely that Sony will attempt to beat Microsoft to the punch prior to the event, which hopefully would mean that the actual event itself would be focused on the machine and the games that are going to be available for it, rather than more mundane discussions such as its price point and marketability. That's the kind of thing that will hopefully be discussed in a press conference prior to the event. As to whether or not they will decide to do it during the Sony press conference prior to E3, or they may in fact do it even earlier than that, well, that remains to be seen. Personally, if I recall correctly, having watched the press conferences from all of the big three majors over the last few years, Sony has done a reasonably good job, at least in the past 2 years, of focusing primarily on the games, with some minor announcements surrounding things like 3D televisions, the PlayStation Vita, and so on and so forth. This is in fairly stark contrast to Microsoft, who spent a lot of last E3's press conference focusing on Netflix and the potential of Xbox Live as a bigger content delivery system, including television and all sorts of other things like that. There were, in fact, not all that many games on display in Microsoft's press conference. However, we should not, of course, forget that Sony has not exactly been particularly good when it comes to announcements of major platforms. I'm sure many of you remember the rather infamous E3 press conference in which the PlayStation 3 was announced, including, of course, Giant Enemy Crab and $599 US, as well as the absolutely unforgettable follow-up of Ridge Racer. Yeah, here's hoping they can avoid that, and indeed a pre-E3 press conference announcement would hopefully allow them to get all of that nonsense out of the way and then focus on games. One should also point out, of course, the PS3 is far from dead, and the Vita is just starting to enter the next part of its lifespan, so it is very likely that there will be a focus on those systems as well, and he is hoping that the PlayStation 4 itself, the hardware and any controversy that comes with it, do not end up dominating the actual E3 press conference. A personal hope, by the way, what I also hope does not dominate the E3 press conference is a focus on any technology that does not directly enhance traditional games. Now, I've been a fairly outspoken supporter of the PlayStation Move and its capability to turn first-person shooters into a tolerable experience for me. It is the closest you can get to mouse and keyboard controls on an actual console without using a mouse and keyboard, and as a result, I've been able to enjoy games like Resistance and Killzone, whereas otherwise I would not have been able to, because I hate playing first-person shooters on controllers. I just hate how they feel. I hate the imprecision, whereas PlayStation Move allows you to get around that. So I don't really mind necessarily if we get something like that. That is a tool that can be used to enhance traditional games without completely replacing them. The Kinect, in theory, is a tool that can do that, and yet never actually manages it. And indeed, every time they try and pull that off, it goes horribly wrong. And of course, one of the most glaring examples of that last year would be Steel Battalion. Ugh. Yeah, it's cringeworthy. It is indeed. So, the risk, of course, is that the PlayStation 4 and the 720, or whatever they decide to call the bloody things, will be fixated on that kind of technology, and I very much hope that is not the case. Not only does it make the systems more expensive, but it does not, in fact, actually enhance the kind of games that I would want to play on that system. What we need to see is a power shift. We need to go to the next level of console power, because if we don't, then we're going to have a 6 or 7 year, maybe even longer period of gaming just being tied down and dragged backwards by hardware manufacturers that are not willing to keep the pace. I mean, if these things come out and they're beaten by mid-range PCs, then that's going to be horrible news for PC gaming. It really, really will be, because if these things take off and they sell a lot, as they have a tendency to do, then you're going to see them become primary development platforms. You're going to see developers focusing on the limited power of that and not the much less limited power of the PC platform, and you pretty much know my opinion on this. God, how many times have I stated it? But it's good to see that we are finally getting away from the PS3 and 360 era. It is about goddamn time. CD Projekt Red recently released a new trailer for their forthcoming game Cyberpunk 2077. This game doesn't actually contain any gameplay footage, but it certainly does look rather neat, and while it's got people very excited for the project, it's certainly not actually containing any new information. Aside, of course, from a hidden frame within the actual video itself, which stated, "We are about to reveal our other project, which is much closer to being completed, and it will also be a fully open-world game with an intense story. You can probably guess the game we're talking about. On the 5th of February, it will all be clear." So this is not a formal announcement for The Witcher 3, but honestly it really cannot be anything else, considering that it's stated to already be in development, and that, well, they indicated everyone can guess what they're talking about. So pretty much an announcement for The Witcher 3, which is certainly good news indeed, and they are looking for a release in 2014 for that one, whereas Cyberpunk 2077 is scheduled for a 2015 release, which is certainly quite a far way off. Nothing wrong with that as far as I'm concerned. It is a AAA quality product by the looks of it, as of course was Witcher 2. If it takes that long to develop it, then so be it, as long as the game ends up being good. Although I have to say the release date for Witcher 3 indicates to me that they're probably going to be sticking around on the same engine for a while, rather than completely redeveloping it, which is by no means a bad thing. It's a great looking engine, and just bear in mind, of course, that engines can be enhanced as you go forward. Don't necessarily expect The Witcher 3 to look exactly the same as The Witcher 2. It is most likely going to look a hell of a lot better, and we'll be able to take advantage of 2014 PC hardware, which is certainly good news for everybody. It would appear at the moment that the vast majority of CD Projekt Red staff are currently working on The Witcher 3, and they are in the process of recruiting for a second development team in order to push through Cyberpunk 2077, although it wouldn't surprise me at all if once The Witcher 3 has completed, then the rest of the team will move over to finishing off Cyberpunk. Aside from that, there's not a huge amount of information available about the game, and it is still a far way off. Although I have to say, I'm fairly happy that it's CD Projekt Red making this game, because they are one of the only developers that are not afraid to deal with more adult and mature subjects, and that is evidenced, of course, by the plot of Witcher 1 and 2, not necessarily evidenced by the amount of bare breasts, although that certainly does contribute to it. So, if you're going to do a Cyberpunk game, and you're going to do Grim Darkness of the Far Future kind of thing, then for the love of God, you have to actually do that concept justice, and unfortunately that doesn't seem to happen all that often. It's also nice that we're getting a game that is based in a cyberpunk style in general. The last good one, of course, was Deus Ex Human Revolution, and before that, well, what did we have? Maybe the previous Deus Ex? This is the problem, really. That is not actually a very explored time, theme, aesthetic, and genre. We don't have a huge amount of cyberpunk games, and some of the ones that we do are not very good. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of this. Of course, I will talk more about it probably in 3 years when the bloody thing comes out, but the trailer's awesome, and I suppose that's all that really matters for the time being. Gabe Newell has been speaking on the Nerdist podcast as regards to PC gaming and console gaming, and the difference between it, which he claims is actually an artificial line in the sand between the actual PC and devices within the living room. He claims this is the reason why they decided to design Big Picture Mode in the first place, and goes on to say that he would like to see his game experience continue, whether he's on mobile, in the living room, at work, or on an aeroplane. He also took the opportunity to criticize certain manufacturers, such as Apple, for throwing up roadblocks in the way of being able to do that in the first place. He claims that Apple has no interest in interoperating well with people who are currently controlling the living room space. So we're talking about those that manufacture Blu-ray players, those that manufacture televisions, and of course those that manufacture electric games consoles. He went on to claim that they were creating a silo separate from what you're doing on your laptop and your desktop. He went on to address the problems with controlling the actual system itself and stated that Valve were in fact working on a controller that had the control and preciseness that you're used to with a mouse and keyboard, except done in a mobile-friendly and living room-friendly way. Now, it's not exactly new information that Valve has been working on certain kinds of control methods, and with all of this new information coming out, it's becoming rather clear as to what their long-term business strategy is. The notion being that if you can take PC gaming off of the PC, you can put it on a screen, whether it be a handheld screen or one in your living room, and then you can figure out a way to control it that is just as good as a mouse and keyboard. Then you can increase the number of people that are interested in gaming on PCs, and you can make it a more useful platform for the average user to play AAA quality titles, which will of course be bought from Steam. So all of this ties together quite neatly. I would strongly recommend you check out the entire podcast. The Nerdist is actually a really, really great show. You can very easily find it on iTunes, and its website is nerdist.com. They are not, by any stretch of the imagination, a small show. They are very much worth checking out. And honestly, it's hard to disagree with Gabe Newell's comments on that particular matter. It doesn't necessarily matter what system you play your games on, as long as the games run reasonably well. However, the notion that you need to buy different devices in order to play exactly the same video game is nothing short of ridiculous. Think about this. As it stands, there is currently no product on the market, no company on the market that provides a AAA quality gaming experience that can work on PC, on your television, and mobile. You can maybe do two of those three things, but you can't do all of them. That in itself just beggars belief, doesn't it? And yet, that's the way that it is, because for the past decade or more, we've been creating closed platforms. And none of these platforms actually have any interest in interoperating with each other. It's of no benefit to them. Sony needs to sell video games on its systems because they take a cut of every sale. That's the way the system works. That's how they make their money. That's why they can afford to sell the systems initially at a loss, because they make the money back on accessories and on the license fees for every game that is made for that system. So what does Sony really want you to be able to do? Well, they would absolutely love you to buy a PS Vita, and they'd love for that to be interoperative. Why? Because it's a selling point for the Vita. That's why we have stuff like crossplay. That's why we have stuff like remote play. That is there because it's supposed to incentivize you to purchase a PS Vita. But they have no interest at all in allowing cross-compatibility with your PC or anything like that. I mean, why would they? Oddly enough, the company that you would really think actually would want those things, Microsoft, has actually shown no interest whatsoever in doing that. More to the point, they've actively restricted exclusives where possible to the 360 alone. The Halo series is a prime example. This is a series that was initially designed for PC, was then remodeled for console, released in that version. Then eventually we got a version for PC. We got Halo 2 if you wanted to buy Windows Vista to run it. And then where's Halo 3, ODST, Halo 4, Halo Reach? Why is that stuff not on PC? It just isn't. Games for Windows Live, does that really interact properly with Xbox? Is there any cross-compatibility? No. All it does is share your achievements list. Is there indeed any system which allows you to play with people on 360? Not since Shadowrun in 2007. There's been no effort whatsoever to actually cooperate in any way there. And Microsoft, more so than anything, when it comes to the gaming front, seems to have no interest in operating on PC anymore. They're more interested in operating on 360, a platform that they directly control. There's plenty more examples, but at the end of the day, there is only one way to make this work, and that is with the PC. The PC is the only platform that is currently open enough to make this work properly and to actually allow you to play your games wherever you go or whatever you want to use it on. If I buy a copy on my PC, ideally I should be able to play that wherever I go. And in the case of any PC game right now, I really cannot do that. You could say, oh, well, you can use Splashtop. It's not a good enough solution. You need a better one. I mean, Splashtop's not even compatible with full-screen games. It's got lag problems. It would be great to be able to take my PC gaming anywhere and to be able to use it on a television comfortably, to use it on my PC, in my office, in my big comfortable chair, and on the go. That would be great. Can I do that? No. So anything that allows for this kind of future to happen is something that I personally will support. and I would like to see that happen. Hopefully Valve will be the company that are capable of doing it. I don't really see any other company willing to, so I guess it's in their hands. And finally, Warner Bros. Has registered a large number of Arkham-related domain names, some of which pointing to Arkham Universe, which raises speculation, of course, of a possible MMO or some kind of larger-scale co-op multiplayer game. Of the 15 domains registered, 5 of them pointed to the term Arkham Universe, with other terms including Arkham Arises, Arkham Begins, Arkham Dark Knight, Legend, Knight Origins, and Stories. It is not exactly a shock, of course, that a new title in the Batman Arkham series would be coming our way, but it is, of course, interesting to speculate as to what that title would involve. We've seen an interesting transition from Batman Arkham Asylum, which was not an open-world game, although it did involve navigating a reasonably open, if somewhat directed and linear world, all the way through to Batman Arkham City, which was very much a free roamer with a lot of more scripted and linear indoor elements. One has to wonder where the game series will actually end up going from there, although with a title like Universe, it seems fairly unlikely that we will see a return to the Batman Arkham Asylum style of level design, which may very well be disappointing to some people, and I wouldn't necessarily blame them. Arkham Asylum was an excellent game and very well designed indeed, and some fans did not, in fact, enjoy the transition to an open world game, which they felt very much broke up the flow and the actual pacing of the title. There is currently no information on the follow-up to Arkham City, although it seems fairly logical that developer Rocksteady will be behind the reins once again. Alright folks, that is me done for the day. Thank you very much for watching this content patch, and I will see you next time.